This is the Wait Just an Infosec podcast, your weekly opportunity to tap into the minds of some of the world's foremost cybersecurity experts. Wait Just an Infosec is a weekly show live streamed on SANS Institute social media channels on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The show features a wide range of guests from across the InfoSec community. Whether we're diving into the weeds of the latest data breach or exploring the security implications of groundbreaking technology such as generative AI, each episode brings you new insight to keep you engaged in the industry, feed your fire for knowledge, and amplify your value as an InfoSec practitioner. Join the SANS community and gain free access to cutting-edge industry news, cybersecurity resources like technical research, and tools that can't be found elsewhere. Subscribe for free today at sans.org/join.
All right, so has anyone had a chance to think about, should countries ban ransomware payments? I see that one person says, I think it will help in the countries that sign on, might make it worse for those who don't. That's a good point. There might be some targeting that occurs. So what I'm going to do is we're going to see if we can pull Sherrod onto the stage.
Hi, it's me.
Hello. Hi, Sherrod. How you doing?
Good. It's so good to see you, Ryan.
Yes, it's good to see you again. For folks who are not familiar, and shame on you if you're not yet familiar, Sherrod is the Director of Threat Intelligence Strategy at Microsoft. She's been doing that for what, a couple months now? How long has it been?
I started in February, but at Microsoft, time is compressed and strange, and people have been there for 20 years. So me just starting in February, I still feel pretty new.
Gotcha. All right. Well, she was also selected as Cybersecurity Woman of the Year in 2022. Quite the accomplishment. And Cybersecurity PR Spokesperson of the Year in 2021. Sherrod and I run in some similar circles, and in the background, she is often, although not bragging about it, but I'll do a little of the bragging for her, helping, just overall volunteering her time and contributing to assisting those around the world with anything and everything when it comes to malicious activity on the internet. I'll call it that for now. And I'm so fond of her work that a conference that I previously ran for a couple of years, CactusCon out in Arizona, she was our keynote this year. And so very happy to have you on, Sherrod. Is there anything else you'd like to share about yourself before we get going?
Well, I also have an internet famous dog named Boris Karloff. So if you ever check out my Twitter, it's Infosec and pictures of my dog, which if you like that content, wow, I'm really the place.
There was someone recently, I wish I could recall who it was, but they were looking through algorithms in Twitter X, and they noted that if you put like cats of Twitter or cats of X or something like that, that you get like exponential followers. I was like, that's fantastic.
People like their pet content. I'm one of them.
They sure do. I have two crazy boxer dogs, and they just do the wackiest things all day long. I should jump on that. Folks would probably appreciate them maybe as much as I do. One of them's kind of crazy, though. I don't know. She's a little bit out.
Boxers are known for being kind of wild.
Yeah, just chasing their non-existent tail around.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a number of things to talk about today. One of the things that I want to bring up again and verify in the comments here is our question of the day. So let's see, I'll just read some of these off. Gene says, this will never stop until paying ransom criminals is made illegal. So I think in a perfect world, if all payments in any way, shape, or form went away completely, then obviously there wouldn't be a business model, right? But we don't live in a perfect world, actually far from it. So Sherrod, what are your thoughts to start us off here?
So I think this is really interesting. This came out yesterday or the day before about 48 countries and 2 organizations. And I want to say those 2 organizations are Interpol and the European Union. So 48 countries plus those 2 little organizations said that they have a policy as the Counter Ransomware Initiative. The policy is do not pay. Do not pay ransomware. Do not pay extortion demands. Don't do it. That doesn't make it illegal. It makes it sort of a policy agreement, which may move to something in law going forward. And I know, for example, Ryan Kovar from Splunk has a tracker that, hey, Ryan, that talks about the local laws for each state and country about whether you can or can't pay ransom. my question that whenever someone says something should be illegal is, okay, so what's the punishment when someone violates the law? How do you punish them? And that gets into, if you're a victim of a crime and you pay in violation of the law, now you're like a kind of a double victim because then you need to be punished. So it's a really sticky situation with ransomware payments.
Yes, it was actually just a week or two ago. There was, I don't want to bust anyone out directly, so I won't name a name in this particular instance, but there was an organization, a management organization of, let's just go with medical practitioners that was fined because they had a breach and because of the access to the data that was ensued because of that breach. And so you get to a point where is, okay, well, are we putting a, even more so of the onus on the data holders, the organizations, or are we essentially kicking them when they're down, And
right.
I think it really, there's positives and negatives on both sides of it.
I'm a big fan of moving the thoughts towards vilifying threat actors, not ever glorifying threat actors, not making them out to be, these sort of Hollywood anti-heroes the way we see in movies. I really think that we need to look at them as adversarial, as a problem, and glorify defenders, which most of us on here are. I hope. If there's any threat actors on the chat, please identify yourself now. Hello to the threat actors. But I think it's really important to focus on the victimization of these organizations and then ultimately the people whose data is being stolen. When we talk about a breach against a particular organization, it's important to remember that at the end of the day, the reason that data needs to be protected is because it impacts people's lives. So we're not just talking about, oh, there was a big breach at XYZ Corporation. Oh, well, I mean, there was a big breach and your data could have been in there. My data could have been in there. And so ultimately, we have to think all the way down that impact chain, the same way we look across an attack chain.
Very well stated. I worry. I don't worry. When you work in consulting as long as I have, there's worry, and then there's probably that how much of our information is already out there, and how much more is just going to continue to get out there. And you have I remember going into doctors' offices back. They don't do it anymore. I guess I'm dating myself here. 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was. Before we used iPads and typed on our own console kiosks to check in and things like that. Hey, you have a piece of paper and you'd be like, put your social security number here.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be like, I saw someone picking through your trash on the way in here.
Well, so I worked in the mall when I was 15. I worked in the Hello Kitty store in the mall. And we had, this is how some of you that are, younger don't know about this, but you used to put a credit card in a big metal machine and go chunk, chunk across it. Yeah, the knuckle buster. And before you could swipe. So at this point in the 90s, we did not have swipe. So we would do the knuckle buster. But if that thing broke, sometimes a piece of it would come apart, we would hand write credit card numbers onto a triplicate carbon copy paper. And we would have to, I guess they sent them off to some kind of processing center like they did with checks in order to actually charge the charge card or the credit card. So we've evolved in the way that we've done data handling, but now we're looking at, the retail stores handling the data properly. But at the end, of that line, there's the corporate, data warehouse that might be vulnerable to some kind of breach or ransomware.
I like how you stated that we've evolved our data handling and it's going to continue to evolve and continue and continue. When organizations first started putting data in, quote unquote, in the cloud, let's just say into buckets. Let's just use, we'll use that term kind of like Kleenex and Q-tip. It's a bucket, a storage bucket, right? And it was just the Wild West. There were open S3, Amazon S3 buckets just all over the place. And, and you move now to folks are still just today in 2023, maybe as soon as I say it, maybe realizing that there's something like the AWS lock where you can at least lock and make immutable some of your storage. And they're like, oh, well, that's cool, but how does that stop people from reading it? Don't let them get access to it.
I know it's really surprising that it feels like we're still in the early infancy stages of some of the move to the cloud choices and some of the data handling choices. We have all this governance policy. We have all these standards. We have the International Counter Ransomware Initiative making a policy about it. Yet we're not quite there. And we continue to see marquee headline breaches. That's something that is sort of a personal thought conundrum for me. You know, I don't understand how we have these massive enterprises that keep also getting massive, devastating breaches. And I think that as defenders, it's our responsibility to understand why that is and solve that at the organizations where we can. I mean, we see a breach headline every day, right? Like constantly. And yeah, like you see a breach headline all the time and you think, them, they're huge. What? And I think that we've got to, as an industry, try to nail down, why is this happening? Because I guarantee you that these organizations have massive spend on security. And so where's the disconnect between I've spent massive amount of money on these security products, yet I'm experiencing breaches? People are certainly in the middle. Implementation is certainly in the middle. Design and architecture are certainly in the middle. But how do we get to that middle piece in between? I spent a ton of money on security and I got breached. How do we solve that gap? That's the place that I feel is probably the next frontier for all of us as defenders.
And I think that serves as a perfect segue into furthering the discussion concerning the SEC's actions.
Yes. So that indictment, as Dr. Johannes talked about in the earlier segment, you know, I'm thinking of that from a macro level and an attitude level. What are CISOs in the role now, in the seat now, going to do in reaction to this? And how do we, quite frankly, as an industry and as defenders, how do we help CISOs get well? It sounds like this is something that may be a trend that continues. We may continue to see CISOs held really responsible for breaches, security posture, misses, things where they're just not quite where they should be in especially a regulated industry or a publicly traded organization. Where do we go as defenders to get these CISOs at the level that they need to be? And are we offering our expertise, knowledge to them to leverage? That's going to be the key, is all of us who sit, you know, in our desks and go, that wouldn't happen to me. I know how to fix that. Okay, you have to go tell them how to do it now. Like, there's no more armchair quarterbacking. These CISOs need you to get in the game. And the CISOs need to understand that the players they have on the field are doing the work for them. I think that the CISO role is going to have to change in response to this.
You know, one of the things that scares me, honestly, and I have to let me form my, all right, got it. As a consultant, many times when we come in to work an incident, right? So by the way, I work in incident response consulting. So when the bad things happen, certain crews are called in to assist. That's
you drop down out of a helicopter with ropes and like full tactical gear. I know you come through you break through a skylight and drop down like Spider-Man.
And you get that.
I know what incident response is like. Come on.
Yeah. So when we come in, right, we work for X number of days, weeks, months, however large the incident might be, right? And one of the key things from what we do with the client, really a big part of the purchase, right, and us, and we're not usually not a cheap date, so make sure, you know, check your cyber insurance policies and things of that nature, is the reporting. And one of the things that I've learned more and more and more, and I hear more and more and more, is this term discoverability. Oh, that's discoverable. That's discoverable. That's discoverable. Well, what I mean is when we provide things like recommendations, you know, you go through an attack, say someone has like kind of foreshadowing into another topic of discussion coming up, you know, someone gets into your single sign-on environment or into your multi-factor, or maybe it's the same, you know, whatever it might be. And they start finagling around, clicking on things. And then all of a sudden our feedback is like, okay, we'll address these, you know, 27 different things. These you should definitely look into. Some are incident specific and some are general hygiene type of things. Many times clients no longer want those in writing. Many times they want to just have a verbal report because they're worried about discoverability. And you look at this case and you look at the emails sent back and forth. how many times, like ask yourself, if you're watching this, how many times have you had conversations? Maybe let's go with digital or typed out conversations in which you addressed there is an issue, right? Even if you have a fix for it or not, how many times has that occurred? And that occurred in this situation where there were a couple different, I'll just say a couple different emails and a couple situations where, oh, we're not at the security posture, we're not at the level we really should be at. I didn't see any information in the SEC's disclosure really about, well, what exactly were the plans going forward, and how further did you monitor those conversations, and what projects and milestones were put into place, and how far were they progressed upon, and things of that nature. But I start to get worried about, we want to take more of a proactive approach to find the problems, but the more that we're finding those problems and communicating them, is that going to lead to problems down the road if something does occur? And is that fair necessarily?
I hate it, because essentially what you're describing is a chilling effect on incident responders to do their best work and communicate their best findings to their client. That's horrifying. So I think we have to try to combat those attitudes as much as we can. I don't know the exact mechanisms by which we can do that, but you're absolutely right that concerns around discoverability for a breach, really the focus should be on remediating and recovering from that breach. But I want to also mention two things. First, for anyone listening, I believe from what Ryan is saying that he has read that SEC indictment or that SEC charges sheet. The number one thing that I always tell people when they say they want to get into threat intelligence, oh, Sherrod, I want a career in threat intelligence. What should I do? I don't have the telemetry I need. I don't have access to the data. Oh no, go read indictments, go read criminal charges, go read civil charges, go read all of the big headline makers that come out, because ultimately those are the things that you're going to start writing when you get into a cyber threat intelligence role. So become very familiar with that style of walking through stories. Second, I think also what you're touching on is that I can't remember who said it. Someone said it on X/Twitter the other day, but you have 25 things wrong in your security posture in your organization. Don't let the bottom 20 become the blockers through the top 5. Like, I see that all the time. Organizations are trying to do these minute little low impact things when they've got top 5 changes, vulnerabilities, program fixes that they need to do. But for whatever reason, they're focused on these little low impact things. I think it's really important to have as much impact as you can. Look at the things that you can do. And I mean this in your life, your personal life, your work life, the security program at your job. Find the things that have the most impact and focus on those. If you're not focusing where you can have impact, I don't know, it'll tear at your soul. You'll feel like your life is pointless. Go where the impact is and do that stuff.
I saw you just taking notes while I was talking, and I saw you look down and address those notes. I freaking love that. But that's
do you want to see my pen? Let me show you my cool pen.
Yeah, go.
If anyone follows K-pop, I use the Line Friends pens, because these are the best pens. If you ever find these Korean pens, buy them. They're great.
Nice. So taking notes and segmenting your tasks in life, speaking of setting milestones, when I was writing my SANS course, just write a course. No, not even write day 1. No, write module 1 of day 1. No, like do 3 slides. You have to just break things out and not losing sight of, like you said, the bottom X number. We find in consulting that so often, and I mean like so often, that the problem is a security 101. I hate to say the word failure, but failure. And it's not some crazy, extreme, complicated thing. It's something where, alert just marked as a false positive, or RDP's open to the internet on this one server and it's been around here for 7 years. Who cares about it? Well, the threat actor cares about it, right?
And a lot of that happens too because of analyst fatigue and security fatigue and SOC fatigue, alert fatigue. We're overwhelmed with a lot of this stuff. And I think that those solutions have got to come quicker and faster for us to be more effective. I'm a big believer in leveraging the technologies that we have to get to the places where we want to be. And I also am speaking of note taking, I'm a big note taker, but I also follow the KFC method for just about everything I do, which is K, know what you want. So establish your goal before you start. F, find out what you're getting. So look at the results that are coming back at you. And then C, change what you're doing until you get the results that you want. I feel like a lot of journeys start out without anyone knowing exactly where they want to go. And when I say know what you want, I mean, what does it taste like, smell like, feel like, look like? What is my world like when I get to the place that I want to be? Know what you want, because if you don't, you won't know when you are there or when you're just driving further and further away. It's like getting in a car and just driving around without putting something in the GPS. You have to know what you want first.
As the kids say, clip that.
Oh, I didn't know. What is this? Clip that?
Clip that, like all the Twitch streamers, when they say clip that, they mean to record the last 30, 60, whatever seconds, and then just share that particular little clip. Clip that. Someone clip that for us.
I'm not around young people enough to know what that is, but now I do.
I think, well, first off, we can go down this rabbit hole for a long time, but I want to make sure that I'm addressing some of our audience questions and comments. So let's see here. There's some notes. James Navarro mentions Ping Castle and Purple Knight. So if folks are not familiar with Ping Castle and tools like Bloodhound, things of that nature, for you IT-oriented folks on the line, like we're on an old phone. Whatever.
This is a call-in show, morning Zoo crew.
Yeah, we're going old school now. We're
out of Toledo. Call us.
Line 6 and 7 are open. Yeah, those tools are very, very helpful. Again, Ping Castle, Purple Knight, Bloodhound is one. Be careful to randomly just run Bloodhound in your environment for identifying issues that are within your environment. And many times folks don't perform their scanning on their own environment. And so what we were talking about is in cases where they are kind of familiar with their posture. And, just ask yourself this, if you're watching this, any of you, an answer, maybe don't put it in chat, especially with your real name and like a LinkedIn attributable where you work. But ask yourself, do you truly believe your organization is impermeable to ransomware? Right? First off, I can answer that for you. But a better way to approach it is, are you taking steps every day? Are you taking actions? Do you have your goals? Right? And it's important that you are making moves. And if you feel like the task is too large, then you'll never start. And that's exactly what Sherrod was getting at with her methodologies. And I appreciate you sharing that.
So let me tell you another methodology that I'm obsessed with. It's about 23 years old. It comes from one of the most old schoolers out there, Bruce Schneier. It's a process, not a product. Security is a process. It's not a product, meaning it's not an off-the-shelf thing that you buy. And it's not a product, meaning that it's something that you produce at the end of the day. You wash your hands and you're out. That is not what security is. Security is a process, and it is a process that has to continue forever in order to improve a security posture. It should always be improving. And also, for those of you who think your home is ever going to be done, that's a process too. You moved into a new house, it never will end. And security is the same. As people, data, processes, the market, the landscape, all of these things, as they change, your security posture has to change too. And it has to always be in process. It's not a product. There's a the seminal, in my opinion, essay foundationally for security for me is Bruce Schneier's It's a Process, Not a Product. Go check out that article. It's like 20 years old, 25 years old. But to me, I go back to it almost every day. When I see struggles, when I see organizations having a hard time, I'm constantly saying, this is a process. You're in this process and you're in it forever. That's what security is. It's not just something that's going to happen and be done at the end of the day.
You've all just been assigned homework. And when I say you all, I mean me too.
Oh, they put it in the chat. They put that essay in the chat. Okay, so 2000. So it's 23 years old. And I love that essay. It's fantastic.
So speaking of increasing your security posture and taking steps in the right direction, many of us, that was a transition. Well, smooth. Here we go. Many of us want to use password managers because we don't want to have our passwords sitting in text files and Excel files. And by the way, stop it. Hey, stop it. We see it all the time. We see it all the time in engagements where we come in and it's like, oh, the threat actor gained access to so-and-so tool. How'd they get access to that? Oh, the ESXi root password was sitting in a text file called ESXi_root_password.txt. Stop it. But password managers, how secure are they really? So what are your general thoughts?
Ryan, if you'd asked me this like 3 years ago, I would have been like, you better be using a password manager and you better get one of the top tier, well-known password managers and you need to use it. I still believe in centralized password management, but I think that we have all seen in the past year, especially, that single sign-on and password management organizations have experienced their own breaches, both of customer data, internal data, partner data. It's been a rough couple of years for what we have advised people to do in terms of good security hygiene and password management. That said, I do think a password manager is superior to something like hard-coded passwords in code or development environments. I do think it's better than something like a text file, like you just mentioned. Is it better than a piece of paper on a desk? I don't know at this point. That would require local access to obtain that piece of paper. And so maybe for specific certain kinds of passwords to something like a production environment, maybe physical passwords are a necessity at this point. I think we've got to think about things like multi-factor, FIDO, getting to a place where authentication and authorization. So again, these are foundational security functions, identity and access management, authentication, authorization, get to a place where they fit within your security posture and you're being smart about things. Before you start going down these really complicated paths of like eliminating password managers, make sure you don't have hard-coded passwords first. Make sure you don't have text files hanging out called textwords.txt or passwords.txt. That's the kind of stuff that I think we need to start with. But I admit I have a little bit of breach fatigue for the password managers and single sign-on orgs.
Yep, recently had one in the news for, do we want to say the name?
I don't know. I mean, all of them almost now, right?
Let's go with that. You see access to some of the password managers or to some of the SSO systems run by password management organizations, right? Or that sell the products. You get my idea.
Yeah.
Some folks might be interested in a free and open source password manager that you run locally. There's one called TeamPass that I'm very fond of. You just go to GitHub and check out TeamPass. It's a pretty good tool. I know some organizations that use it successfully. One of the things you have to think of is that anything you put in the cloud, right? Essentially, you're losing control. Like, how much control are you losing? Well, essentially, and technically, if you're looking at the CIA triad, going back to your Security Plus training.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I love the CIA triad. I love that thing.
Think about confidentiality. Yeah. Integrity. Yeah. Okay. Well, so almost all of it, got it. And it's very important that people keep in mind that you need to implement, just like you said, you need to implement all these different mechanisms around the mechanisms that you hope will secure you. So my point being is that you don't just have an SSO, you have SSO with MFA. Is that MFA using SMS? Well, now there's SIM swapping it. Well, I'm saying now, they've been around for years, but I mean, now they're just they're more common, right? So you should be using an application that sends a push request and even requests some type of code or something to put into that, right? You have to have multiple layers of security. And we're finding, like, I worked a case not too long ago where there was a password manager, a very popular one, and a key was pulled from memory using a tool called Key Thief. And so there's a tool out there. There's many tools for different utilities and different systems that you might use. And if someone gets onto the host, and in memory, the master password is being used to unlock your keychain or whatever it might be called in your tool, someone can gain access to that. So you think, well, how can you stop that threat? Well, you don't let someone get on the box in the first place, right? And that goes back to security 101, starting from the ground up.
I think that that's part of it. I think a lot of organizations have gotten ahead of their skis, if you want to use a fun aphorism. In terms of, like we said, like, you have these top 25 issues, security issues in your environment. And it's like, I think that a lot of organizations have started picking at the bottom instead of starting like with those hygiene steps at the very top, like 1 through 5. Like they don't have good password management, regardless of password manager. So, I don't love the baby steps comment. I do think that you should, grow up and walk. Um, but a lot of organizations have not followed an evolutionary path and instead done like these fits and starts of, well, we tried this and didn't like it. And what's over there? And it's almost like there's a distractedness in security programs. And I think some of that is driven by headlines. I think some of that is driven by decision maker priority changes. And so, kind of going back to the role of the CISO, guide your CISO, help them understand. For those of you that have been around a long time, the role of the CISO today is not the same kind of role that it was 15 years ago when we first started really getting that going. It's a different reality. Their reporting structure is different, their background, experience, and education is different, and their responsibilities are different. As the industry, as defenders, it's important that you help your CISOs really be educated on what the impact of security choices will be so they can make smart decisions.
I love it. And I think that works as a fantastic outro for our little feature segment here. So Sherrod, of course, thank you for joining us today. And do you have any fun projects, anything you want folks to know about, find you in certain places, things, doing fun stuff?
Oh, great question. So thank you for having me. I just want to mention 2 things. First, I will be at Microsoft Ignite. I'll be at Cyber WarCon this week. I'll be at Microsoft Ignite next week. But I do have the Microsoft Threat Intelligence podcast. Please do check it out. We do a lot of behind the scenes, interesting stuff from Microsoft Threat Intelligence analysts. They tell us what's on the ground, incident responders, threat intelligence analysts. In fact, some of the topics are so spicy that it's done anonymously. So we have some mystery guests that come on. I'd love for people to check that out. And I post it on my LinkedIn. So if you want to see it, you can just follow me there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Folks, it would behoove you to follow her in the locations where she's sharing information, because I have benefited personally and many others have too. So again, Sherrod, thank you very much for joining today.
Thanks for inviting me, Ryan. It was great to meet you, or great to see you, and great to meet all the rest of the team that brought me on. So thanks a lot, Sans, and we'll talk again soon, I hope.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, folks, I want to thank everyone for your general participation throughout the day. There's been a lot of comments. We have a higher number of starred comments than we normally do, and I just absolutely love that. There was a comment that just came in a couple minutes ago. It's simple, but nothing is 100% secure. That's how close can you get to that 99.999, or what do they call it, 99s or whatever it is. There it is right there on the screen for you. Nothing is fully secure, but you can take steps and have the mentality that you're going to do that. I guess you have to be a little bit, let's use the term cognizant, not worried, maybe both, of what you're communicating within your teams. But we don't want that to push you into a corner. And we don't want that as consultants on our side, or just the royal we for cyber defenders, to push us into a wall, into a corner, and to not want to communicate what the problems are. Because if you don't do that, then there's no way to fix them, right? Perhaps what we need is more interactive conversations directly with people and meetings. And, I use this term, folks say this isn't software development. I don't care. A joint application development session, a JAD session, JAD. I think they're critical. I think that they're very important to have, not just intra-department, but inter-departmental communication to talk about what are we using for a password management solution, right? Ask the people in your organization these things. And if you're uncomfortable, then, just get in front of a whiteboard, get some people in person, join, a Zoom or WebEx or whatever floats your boat session, Google Meetup, whatever it might be, and talk through these things. Talk about, are we using MFA? Talk about your SSO provider. Is that secure? Hey, Ryan mentioned this MFA swap, or excuse me, this SIM swapping attack type of thing. Or, what are we susceptible to that? Do we bring our own devices? Do we have users? Do we provide them devices? Like, how does this all work? It's important to foster communication. And that, by the way, is the whole point of our little Sans Wait Just an Infosec stream. So I hope everyone had fun today. I'm checking for any trailing comments before I lead us out. All right, there's so many good comments here. I don't know where to begin. I would like to say a special thank you to everyone involved behind the scenes. Thank you all very much. You're very much appreciated. A thank you to Michelle and Thomas, and of course, Johannes for giving us the News Bites segment. For all of you for joining and participating throughout. And then, of course, Sherrod for joining us for our feature segment. Stay tuned. We're going to have some really fun stuff coming up in the pipeline here at the WJAI. Wait just an infosecond live stream. Again, my name is Ryan Chapman. You can find me at right there at RJ_Chap on X, Twitter. I'm still going to call it Twitter. You can join LinkedIn, toss me on there, whatever you want to do. Would love to communicate with you. Go ahead and throw an invite. Don't be shy. And I think with that, we're going to head out for the day. Again, thank you, everyone. And make sure you stay honest to yourself and to your organization. If you see problems, then just at least talk through them. Thanks, gang.
Thank you for listening to the Wait Just an Infosec podcast. Remember to join us live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern for a new episode of Wait Just an Infosec. You can watch at SANS.org/WJAI or go to the SANS LinkedIn or YouTube channels. The Wait Just an Infosec podcast will be released every Wednesday at noon. Thanks for listening. See you next week.